वेट कर रहे हैं मैम.
Hello everyone. Hello everyone. I'm Vimal. I'm going to be sharing some information about managing and understanding anxiety during the COVID times. I'd like to begin with thanking SecureNow for having me on the platform. Creation is a cycle. Creation is a cycle with a very distinct. Creation is so I was saying, sorry, there was a technical glitch. Creation is a cycle with a very distinct pattern which tends to reinforce itself. And so because we are undergoing challenging times, which we have come across for, at least in our lifetimes, for the first time, it's important to explain how our perceptions create our beliefs. I'm saying this just to set context so that I can build upon the subject that I'm here to talk about. So, because our perceptions create our beliefs and our feelings create our behavior, and our behavior creates our experiences. And the experience of going through this time is what we are going to talk about today. So, like I said, our experience reinforces our reality. And so this determines how we feel and what we think about what we are going through. Going through an experience is one thing, but how we interpret the experience is another. And so I'm talking about a cycle which creates and supports itself. So like human beings are four-dimensional, and we operate at the emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual dimensions. So when we have an experience, it impacts and influences us at all four dimensions. The physical dimension plays a role at the exterior of what is happening on the outside, and therefore it influences or impacts the behavior that we impart. The emotional and mental and spiritual are impacted by the perception at the interior of oneself. हमारे अंदर क्या हो रहा है? सपोजिंग आपके घर में कोई मेहमान आते हैं रात को 12 बजे, तो आप बाहर से बहुत अच्छा बिहेव कर सकते हैं, उनको नाश्ता पूछ सकते हैं, खाना पूछ सकते हैं, लेकिन मे बी ऑन द इनसाइड आप बिल्कुल भी खुश नहीं है कि वो इस टाइम पे बिना बताए, बिना इनवाइट हुए आपके घर आए हैं. So that's what I mean and so the exterior and the interior experience sometimes are aligned, which is the healthier outcome on us, on our mental and emotional well-being. Sometimes it is not aligned, and when it is not aligned, it tends to leave us with an unhealthy impact, which then sets the tone for the next experience, sets the tone for our next response or reaction. It will determine the way we react or respond to our next experience that comes our way. So I hope with the example, it kind of clarifies the kind of theory that I was trying to put across. So how we perceive what is going on around us determines the way we shape our reality. Our reality begins with our thoughts, and the content of what we are thinking and the quality of our thoughts controls our energy level and motivational scale, which we, more than anybody else, we experience for ourselves on a day-to-day basis. So we are constantly firing and wiring our experiences. Firing is either we respond or we react, And wiring is when how we interpret our how we interpret our experience gets filed in our minds. हम इंसान करीबन 60 to 70,000 thoughts process करते हैं एक दिन में. And most of these thoughts are on autopilot and are not positive unless we make an effort to make them positive. The thoughts are conditioned by society, social media, news channels, and cultural beliefs. We can choose the content around which we would like to repeat our thoughts. So, कितना सोचता हूँ मैं, लेकिन क्या सोचता हूँ कि मैं क्या सोचता हूँ is a question that I feel is very important for us to ask, especially in today's times, because we have so much information coming our way. And a lot of it is unfiltered. And हम लोगों को भी एक क्यूरियोसिटी होती है कि हम बार बार जाके न्यूज़ देखते हैं या फिर जिससे भी बात करते हैं इसी के बारे में बात करते हैं. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि हम कोविड के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हम जब बातचीत कर रहे हैं तो हम मुश्किलों के बारे में ज़रूर ज़्यादा बात कर रहे हैं, आसानियों के बारे में नहीं. सो मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है सबसे से ये ज़रूर पूछिए अपने आप से कि कितना सोचता हूँ मैं, लेकिन क्या सोचता हूँ कि मैं क्या सोचता हूँ. You have the power of choice to choose what to think and how much to think about. Think about whether what you are thinking is working for you or is it working against you. Check your thoughts to see if you're criticizing, complaining, being cynical or catastrophizing. या आप हिसाब किताब में जुटे हुए हैं, या आप हर चीज़ को डर के अंदाज से देखते हैं या फेथ के नज़र से देखते हैं. You can either be blaming someone or you can choose to be responsible. A lot of these things that I'm saying are contextual as well, because sometimes experiences ऐसे होते हैं where इत्तेफाक से कुछ होता है, या somebody does something to you, like for instance meeting with an accident or something, and you may not be at fault. You may not be the one who is the causation of the experience that you have gone through, but yet you are someone who has to go through it. So it helps to have this information, because in times like those, it's important to remember that you don't have to fight it, but you do have to face it. You don't have to fight it because it was not created by you, but you do have to face it because it's come onto you. If you feel, if you have the clarity that you have to go through an experience, it keeps you calm. But if you know that you have to battle it, then you may start resisting it with anger, resistance, bitterness, resentment, which in turn harms you, and it also lowers your capability to deal with the situation. Because situation तो आ गई है, उसको तो हमें handle करना ही है. So, like I said, you can either blame or you can choose to be responsible. Blame gives your power away because you want the situation to change or someone else to fix the problem, and that may or may not happen. So, when you're expecting somebody else to do it, they may or may not bring it to the table. But if you choose to be responsible for what you want to change, or for your own peace of mind, then you'll find yourself in the power position and say, I'm just going to take care of this, regardless of whose fault it was or what has come my way. So I would like to begin by just explaining what some of the common problems that have arisen during these COVID times. Is one of the major ones that I get to hear about the most is loss of enthusiasm, demotivation, and also procrastination, because there is a loss of boundaries. People are at home, so it's very common for people to say मन नहीं कर रहा कुछ भी करने के लिए, इसलिए भी because the uncertainty is so high, um, and there is no structure to make a plan, like at least from the outside, because there is loss of contact with people. There is a loss of boundaries. You're working from home. You're living at home. You're looking after the children at home, and so on and so forth. So I would say I would like to just explain what when we say anxiety ho rahi hai ya fear ho raha hai, what is it that we are talking about. Also stress. Stress seems to have become a buzzword. Stress is nothing but fear. Stress is something that you feel when you feel inadequate of handling the situation or the person that you're with. Um, it's a more fancy word than saying that I'm afraid. I'm stressed sounds better than saying that I'm really scared. But essentially it means the same thing. I'm scared because I don't know how to do it, or I'm feeling a bit helpless because I do not know how to go about this problem. Um, so coming back to what is anxiety and what is fear, fear is a mental and emotional reaction that arises when there is a real or perceived threat of harm. Um, Anxiety is a symptom of fear. So I'm going to address it together because I feel, in my experience of having worked with a lot of people, I just feel that they go hand in hand. Fear can be physical, emotional, or psychological. It can be real, and or it can be imagined. The pandemic has brought to the surface the three basic fears of mankind, and also the fear of loss of control, because we can't really control our lives since we don't have the freedom to plan like we used to a year and a half ago. The three basic fears is the fear of nature, because it is a natural calamity and we have no control over it. We are trying to do whatever we can, but essentially nature is on top of its game, not human beings this time. So fear of nature, fear of the unknown and death, fear of human beings, which means that we fear from others and we fear for others as well. Like we fear for the people we love and people who we have at home, people we feel responsible for. Panic is a heightened sense of fear. So when we talk about anxiety and we talk about panic, um, it is fear, but it's intense, and that is why we have bodily manifestations to it, like palpitations होना, सिर में दर्द होना या चक्कर आना, सांस तेज हो जाती है, numbness in the legs. Sometimes you feel tickling in twinkling sensations, or maybe sleeplessness, loss or usually it's loss of appetite, but sometimes I have also noticed that some people also have a tendency to start binging on food. It affects different people differently. I would also like to add here that whatever I am talking to you about is an overall general idea. However, specific, every individual is different, and thereby they experience the anxiety, fear, or panic differently. So, but this is a general talk, and this is a broad coverage of the subject. Coming back to anxiety, the anxiety levels experienced by people around us have gone up since March 2020. And as the uncertainty remains uncertain, the fear remains and grows along, thereby increasing anxiousness. Now, मैंने कुछ लोगों से बात की है जो last year they handled the lockdown really well, because हमारी जिंदगी बड़ी तेज रफ्तार से गुजर रही थी, और जब लॉकडाउन हुआ तो सबको मौका मिला घर बैठने का, परिवारों के साथ वक्त गुजारने का, बच्चों के साथ खेलने का, बहुत सारी चीज़ें घर में करने का। सो आई थिंक कुछ टाइम तक वो बहुत अच्छे से भी हैंडल हुआ था, आराम करने का, मूवीज पे कैच अप करने का, एंड अ लॉट ऑफ द अदर एक्टिविटीज। बट दिस टाइम आई थिंक there is like a sense of being fed up that ye bar how much of uncertainty are we going to face, and how much how bad can it get, and we none of us have any answers to that. um, During these changing times, there is a sense of collective safety and a loss of plans and planning forward. It's also resulted to some extent in a lot of babies being born, and also a divorce boom. So there's been a baby boom and a divorce boom both. Um, the narrowing down of space between people has also resulted in escalating negativity and violence in homes, which has also come to the surface. Um, and on the other hand, there is a sense of loneliness versus being alone, because being alone has a sense of choice attached to it, whereas loneliness has a sense of helplessness attached to it. Um, so I would, you know, these are the problems that have come to the surface, and we are going through it. But later, I'm also going to talk about what to watch out for, and how to the ways that I know of, which is the ways that, in my experience, can help you to structure your day and to bring around discipline and to make the best of the given space as of now. Um, our resources come from our experiences, especially the challenging ones. So this time, one of us is, it's time, we can use this time to build our resource and um, resource for resilience and also adaptability. As this is a process of change, it is also uncomfortable and scary in its own way. So there is the unknown chaos, the unknown predictability, which affects higher resilience, and the people resist change. Um, and just a minute, I think I'm getting some messages about my voice echoing. So I'm going to try and put a mic here. Maybe this will help. So I was talking about using this as an opportunity to build upon our resources for resilience and adaptability. And because there is a sense of chaos and unpredictability, which elects for higher resilience, and people are trying to resist the change, because there is a sense of unpredictability again. So it's uncertainty, meeting uncertainty at various levels, at the personal life, professional life, relational space. And so the sense of powerlessness heightens, and so does. Um, Thank you for letting me know that the voice is clear now. Thanks. Um, so the change, as the powerlessness heightens, the anxiety heightens. So when we become victims of fear, fear becomes unhealthy. But fear also has a positive face to it, because it has in a balanced amount. It also helps us to keep safe, which we are, because we are in our homes, even though we find it difficult, but we stay at home and we look after ourselves better. We eat better, we exercise. So physically, we are looking at us, at our physical beings, in hopefully in better ways to enhance our immunity so that we are resilient to contracting the virus. Um, it also helps us to enhance our creativity, because then we look for ways in which we can entertain ourselves and engage ourselves. And these are the ways in which we are building resilience. Um, I personally think that fear also teaches us to surrender, because when we fight and we resist, and ultimately we know that we can't really change or control things, we surrender. And I think there is power in surrender as well. Now I know some of you out there may have also come very close to death, lost a dear one, or almost lost a dear one, or gone through an experience where you thought you almost would die. Um, I'm not going to go into detail about this, but just um, peripheral information about death, I would like to say that death presents two of the greatest quandaries facing humanity, which is how to cope with losing the people closest to our hearts, and how to contend with our inevitable demise. So, grief is something that happens. It happens in a very overwhelming way when there is threat of death, or when death actually happens. And it's a grief is a process, and it goes through many stages. Grieving begins when we have the time to dive into our thoughts after the rituals are over and the action is over at home. So if someone is going through feeling nostalgia, where they feel that a lot of the memories are coming back, and there are a lot of old times playing in front of your eyes like a movie, it's okay, because nostalgia is an intriguing emotion. And on one hand, nostalgia can be intensely positive, and it could also bring around a sense of belongingness, a sense of retrospection, familiarity. We like to, one of the treasures human beings have is memory, especially good memories. So if you're having nostalgia about the good memories of someone you've lost, that's good. If you're having nostalgia about, if you're having memories about the bad times that you had with someone, that's also okay, because it's okay to grieve your past, and you grieve your past pain, because only when you go through it, you will come out of it. There may be stages of when you're really angry. You would like to ask, why me? There may be bargaining happening, like only if I had done this, or only if that person would come back, I would have. So bargaining also comes along hand in hand with guilt. Um, I'd like you to remember that death is something we don't control. So if you are feeling guilt, something that you can handle, great. But if you think that you cannot, please do go seek help and talk to someone to get over it, because guilt is a very heavy emotion to carry around, and it is not necessary to carry it around. You can go ahead, you will move on, and move forward with your life without it. So do try and talk to someone to shake it off you. There may be negotiation um, with God, maybe, that, I will give this up, or I will do this only if I could have my last word with the person I have lost. Um, that's okay too. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be bargaining. It's okay to be negotiating, as long as they are temporary phases and you come out of it. If you feel that you're stuck in a phase for too long, that's when you need to go take help, or speak to someone who can. It doesn't necessarily have to be a counselor or a therapist. Sometimes even friends are great support, and they can help you come out of it. There may be some existential questions around the meaning of life for you, because losing a partner sometimes lends itself to you having to think about completely reconfiguring your life. So it's I wouldn't say it's the best thing that has happened to you, but it's a necessary thing that's happened to you, and inevitable. So use it to question yourself. It's okay to question, it's okay to find meaning and purpose thereon. Eventually, I think we all come to acceptance. We accept because we accept everything we can't change or control. Um, we can choose the way we come to acceptance. Either we accept it and we don't go through the stages, but if we find it difficult to go through, to come to acceptance, then we need to go through a lot of the stages. Like I mentioned, anxiety and fear and death. I had mentioned procrastination and demotivation to be um, one of the common areas of concern during this time. So I would like to just quickly browse through that. Um, Procrastination is very often confused with laziness, but they're both very different. Procrastination is an active process, so you choose to do something else instead of the task that you know you should be doing. So, for example, if you know that you need to do some office work and there is a deadline attached to it, but because you feel you don't feel like doing it, you are watching Netflix. But while you're watching Netflix, you know that you need to be working on the work. So it's a choice. Laziness suggests more apathy, so inactivity and an unwillingness to act, and it's more in the body. Like the body finds it very difficult to move and to get the work done, and also tries to make peace with the fact that it's okay to not do it. Um, Motivation is very necessary because it is the hub of creativity, productivity, and happiness. And motivation is what causes us to act. And when we act, we create a moment, we create growth, and we create change. Motivation makes us feel involved, it makes us feel masterful and significant. So we feel powerful through experiencing how and what can I do next or new. Um, and we create more of what we love in our lives. That is how motivation helps you in life. But the motivation comes from inside and not outside. So I hear a lot of people saying, I'm not motivated enough. Um, my suggestion is that you need to create the motivation, because if you sit there waiting for motivation to come, I don't think it's coming. It Motivation takes birth from your achievement. So even if you force yourself to achieve a little task that has been pending and you do it, you will find that you're motivated to do more. So you need to do the first thing to feel good, and the better you feel about yourself, the more you will do, and that encourages the cycle of motivation. So most of us have one conception of demotivation, which means that whenever you are unmotivated, you are likely to assume that you're struggling with the same problem. It's being stuck in a cycle. Um, at its essence, demotivation is about your not being fully committed to the act, and there are many reasons why you might be in that position. So demotivation is something that you can reason out. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. Procrastination is something that you can reason out, and you could change that for yourself. You do not need to sit with it. There are ways to stop procrastinating and motivate yourself. For instance, um, also I'd like to mention that when if you repeat procrastination, it becomes a habit. It becomes a deeply ingrained pattern of behavior, and needs to this means it needs constant efforts and will not break overnight. So you need to, when you begin to handle your procrastination, you need to forgive yourself for procrastinating and just feel a little bit um, more sure of yourself that I'm going to make an effort and commit to the first task. You need to commit to the first task by channeling your energy onto doing it rather than avoiding it, because procrastination has a lot of avoidance and we focus on the avoidance. We have हमने PhD करी हुई है बहानों की, endless है. So you know a good way to go about it is that write down the tasks you need to complete, and the first on the list is the one that is top priority. So specif- specify a time for doing it and proactively tackle the work. If you need to force yourself to do the first thing, force yourself to do it. Once that cycle gets going, it'll be easier for you to do the rest of the tasks. Promise yourself a reward, because if you do something, then reward yourself so that you're motivated to do the next thing. You could also have an alliance with someone to check on you. Like peer pressure works. This is a principle behind self-help groups as well, because in self-help groups, there is always somebody checking on someone else, just to not forcing them, not nagging them, but just checking to say, have you done this? You Another thing you could do is to act as you go. So as soon as the work comes, do it there and then, and do not postpone. Um, Rephrase your internal dialogue would help, because the language has a lot of effect on our behavior. So when we use phrases like I need to do this, or I have to do this, or I should be doing it, you're putting yourself under a lot of pressure. So say things like I choose to do it, or I would like to do it, I want to do it. It gives you more power. It makes you, because when you talk to yourself differently, you're also listening to yourself. And language is, if the language is motivational, you will feel more motivated. Small changes, but profound changes. You need to, I think this is something we all need to do, is to minimize distractions. Um, the phone needs to take a rest. Emails need to take a rest. Social media needs to take a rest. And while you're working, avoid sitting next to a television. It doesn't help. And on a day-to-day, when you're trying to break out of the habit of procrastination, if you aim to do the hardest thing the first in the morning, you will get a lot more done. Because when you do the hardest thing first thing in the morning, and then that in itself motivates you to do a lot more throughout the day. You could also keep a to-do list and go back and tick the to-do list so to feel motivated. I know a lot of people do this. There is also for the listing of doing the tasks that you need to do throughout the day. There was Eisenhower had invented. It was called the prioritize your to-do listing. And he suggested that to be able to enable you to quickly identify the activities you should focus on, you do your to-do listing in three categories, which is the urgent, um, moderate, and less important categories. And this, now I don't know whether this helps everybody, but I guess it, different things happen, different things help different people. So I'm just laying it all there so that you could pick the one you resonate with, the method that you resonate with, and you could use that to create more effectivity, to bring around more structure, and to create more discipline. Because happiness comes from structure and discipline. There is no happiness without structure and discipline. Because when there is no structure, you hardly ever get anything done. And even if you do, you don't have the feeling that you've got something done. So you need to become a master of scheduling and planning, and then executing them. These are some of the ways in which you can move out of the space of procrastinating and demotivating. To bring down the fear in today's times, Um, I feel that anything we attach the word normal to, we begin to accept it and stop resisting it. So if we tell ourselves that जब बहुत ज्यादा कोई डर रहा हो और आप उसको बोलो इतना सब कुछ हो गया, तो डर तो नॉर्मल है ना इसमें. the the energy tends to calm down. So if you tell, if we tell ourselves that this is going to be the new normal way of doing it, the universe, the globe is going through reconfiguration of lifestyles where we need to be more cautious, we need to put physical safety first, we need to practice refrain, and we need to minimize on socializing. We need to find new interests to engage in and learn different things to keep ourselves occupied. And we also need to learn to do things independent of company. It will help you to accept this way with lesser resilience. Sorry, I mean with lesser resistance, and thereby making it easier for you to accept, to move forward. Now, I know this sounds like a sort of lot of theory, and I don't have anything new to say because most of you would have heard a lot of stuff around this. Um, I am I'm trying to make it crisp as I can, and put it out there so that different people can resonate with different things, and according to whatever works for you, you could try out any method that will help you to feel better during these times. Now, some of you may not even have a problem. Like you may be enjoying sitting at home. Well, then you can just hear me out, but you don't really need to then apply anything. Um, exercise. Exercise is a very important tool for you to keep in check as well, because when there is movement, when you have physical movement, it helps you to move emotionally and mentally as well. Um, there is, I would also like to point out a checklist of people, people that you're living with, and even for yourself, if you feel that there are some red flags to watch out for. Um, if there is a change of behavior, if you're concerned for the people, your family, and maybe you're living with your partner and you notice some behavior changes, or there's a gut feel that something's not okay, then this is the list that may help you. So the red flags to watch out for are some obsessive thoughts, some suspicious thoughts, and if someone or you yourself are feeling that you're going through this, if you feel like you're losing control over what you're thinking, if there's a loss of appetite and sleep, if you have flashbacks or nightmares while you are sleeping, and and it's affecting the quality of your day-to-day sleep, um, if you have shallow or oppressed breathing and chest pain, if you have frequent panic attacks, um, unexplained night or day sweats or body aches and headaches. Some people also complain of vertigo. This feeling of, if you're feeling bored or paranoid or traumatized and lonely consistently, that's a red flag to watch out to. Fatigue, chronic fatigue is another red flag to watch out for. If there is increasing addiction to watching TV and phone or social media, posing a threat to addiction, um, that is a red flag. If you're consuming more cigarettes or alcohol or any other substances, or if you have taken to consuming them that you were not doing earlier, if you have trouble sleeping, if you have a predisposition of a mental health condition like depression, and if the condition is worsening because of the being at home and being in isolation, please do reach out for help. If you are showing avoidant behavior and you're constantly irritated uh, on yourself and also on the people around you, it, it needs to be paid attention to. If there is some experience of constant confusion or poor concentration, if there are cold sweats, if there's trembling, crying for no apparent reasons, if there is a long-term impending danger or panic or a sense of doom, these are uh, some of the watchful signs that you might want to pay attention to. And this brings me to the end of what I had thought I would share with uh, the people listening. And now maybe I can just go through the questions. Overthinking, there's a question on overthinking. So, overthinking is, I'm glad someone asked this question because overthinking is something uh, which is often experienced with people. It's not only during the lockdown, it's even otherwise. It's because when we say overthinking, it's actually, like I said, we as human beings have between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And most of the thoughts are not on autopilot, but the ones we feel maybe afraid of, angry, and those get stuck in our mind. Or maybe we want to, we are hurt by something that somebody said, and it's got stuck in the mind, it gets into a loop. And that is what I mean when when I'm reading about overthinking or when someone's saying that they're overthinking. It could also be about a story being built, like um, I may lose my job, I may not get this. If I lose my job, this may happen. So it's got a lot of anticipation. It could be a narrative of anticipation, or it could be repetitive thinking. Um, for both the things, you need to learn. It would help if you could write down what you want to think, and then try and read those thoughts out to yourself out loud, because you read them, you say them, you listen to yourself, and a new cycle forms. If you keep on thinking the thoughts that you're already thinking, you may have already experienced that it becomes a cycle. So the question was, how can I overcome overthinking? Is by writing down the thoughts that you would want to think. Write down the healthy things, read it out to yourself. You could do this. Highly recommended to do it as soon as you wake up in the morning. So, for example, if you wake up in the morning and you say to yourself that everything around me is working out for my highest good, all is well and I'm safe, that's a good place to begin. That's again a general. It's a general input, but the more specific you make it, the more effective it will be. If there is fear, if there is a lot of fear about the coronavirus per se, you need to lessen or refrain from consuming too much information about it, because the more information you consume about anything is going to induce fear. You can be, there is a difference in being informed about something and uh, remaining updated with every moment of information. So if you are scared, you need to lessen the information around it and also engage in things that are healthy for you. So it's because it's not only about not doing something, it is also about doing something that is healthy for you and that builds up on your faith. It could be, and faith could be in anything. If you are a person who likes to pray to a deity, to God, to if you believe in stones, if you believe in a mentor, It could be a person that you trust. Build upon conversations around faith, activities around faith, faith of whatever you have faith on. It's very individual. How long does the anxiety and panic disorder continues? Um, there's no absolute answer to that. Again, it's very individual. It also depends on the intensity of the anxiety and panic, and what are the measures that you take towards curing it or taking care of it or lessening it. Medication helps, but medication is again management. You still need to do the deeper work by changing a lot of the behavioral activities or also changing the lifestyle. There could be, is there a connection between vertigo and overthinking? There could be, but not necessarily. People who are irritated all the time. Okay, someone who's lost someone and remains and is taking out the anger on the people who have been left behind. Um, I would say, because we can't really, so the best thing is to talk, for that person to speak to someone to sort out the anger and irritation. However, if that person is not willing to talk to someone, in that case, the family members around that person need to give that person space and stay away. Make minimal conversation and make minimal contact. Some people just need the time and space for them to both to process the anger and the guilt and the helplessness around death and then come around later. So stay away, minimal contact. Um, do not try and include that person or normalize things with that person, like, include them in having every meal together, include them in making decisions, include them in doing the day-to-day activities of the house. If they are irritated and they want time alone, just leave them. Or many a times I have seen that family members think that it's my job to make it okay for the person who's grieving the most in the family. No, it's nobody's responsibility to make it okay for another person. Each individual needs to go through their grieving process individually and learn to come out of it themselves. If you're a newlywed and you're finding it difficult to manage everything at home, you would need to get a little bit creative about it. Like, you would need to engage in, try playing board games, try doing gardening together, because when there is narrowness of space, it helps to increase your activities. Now, so I don't want to suggest activities which sound very cliche, but whatever interests you, you need to raise those activities and you need to start doing them together, or maybe do them separately. Like, if your partner likes to do something else and you like to do something else, then do not try and do it together. Then let them do what they like and you do what you like, and then have a time which you spend together. The clarity you have with the person will really help you better the relationship. There is a difference between rituals and routines. In the routine, have space between each other, and have rituals like which you do together, like having dinner together, or maybe spend having the morning tea together, um, going out for a walk together. But do not try and over try to do everything together and feel bad about the fact that you're not being able to do it. Be yourself. Just everybody, every human being has the capacity to think and decide for themselves. I'm not an expert on COVID, but there's a question about building positive energy while you're recovering from COVID. Um, as much as I know, I think COVID does it has a physiological impact on the brain, the heart, and the lungs. So there is brain fogging for real, confusion, chaos, and you also tend to lose a lot of the physical energy, which makes you feel quite. It's quite a challenge to remain motivated to think right. What I can say is that it helps to remain consistent and repetitive because that's how we human beings learn in life. When we go through nursery, KG, we go through school and college, it is the consistency of the information we consume, and we repeat the same thing over and over again to learn it. So if you're feeling very blah or you're feeling really negative and you know that your goal is to think healthy and positive, do it consistently. Even if it takes a long time, it's okay. Your efforts will get you fruits. It's only a question of time. I think that's the last question. If there are no more questions, maybe we could end. Okay, so there are three more questions and I'm going to answer them backwards. How to convince elderly people to go for counseling. Um, Different things work for different people. Sometimes you need to just force them for the first one, and if they take to the therapist well enough, then they will go back themselves. But you have done your bit by trying it out. Sometimes it's okay to negotiate, say I will do this if you go for therapy. um, it's but do not expect them to go back, because if they're not willing, there are two risks you run into, which is one, they may not speak the truth when they meet the therapist. Second, they may not want to repeat the session, to which you need to be okay with by saying that you have done your bit. So convincing, I'm not sure you can convince them. Okay, there are two questions on depression. I would quickly list the signs of depression. Depression is often accompanied with anxiety. In depression, you feel a lack of enthusiasm. There is total demotivation to do anything. There is constant chronic fatigue that one experiences. There may be frequent headaches. Um, there is a willingness to isolate yourself, don't feel like talking to anyone, don't feel like doing anything. Sometimes, if the depression gets more intense, even the day to day activities become very hard to do, like taking a bath. The appetite may go up or the appetite may decrease. There may be sleeplessness, there may be a lot more sleeping. So you may find someone who's where the depression, on the onset of depression, someone who is sleeping way more than they used to, but there may be someone else who may be completely insomniac and not being able to sleep for 2 nights altogether. And if they're not, but the likelihood of the sleeplessness is going to then couple itself with anxiety. So um, there may there may also be crying spells which are unexplained. You do not know why someone is crying, um, and how is it that they're not coming to a stop, even though you're trying to make conversation which will trying to change the subject, trying to make jokes. It will not help. So these are some of the symptoms of depression, and you If there is no movement, if the person does not feel like they have anything left in life, there is hopelessness, there's helplessness to deal with it, then it's a good idea to go for medication first before you see a therapist. Postpartum, how to deal with postpartum depression is that you do need to you need to have a structure. The the one common thing that helps you out of anxiety, out of depression, and out of grief is structure. If you can make a specific timetable, a time to wake up, a time to um, listen to motivational and inspirational content, if you have a time to work, you have a time to stop working, you have a time to talk to people. It sounds very mechanical, but it is not. It's only about, I'm not saying that you need to do everything according to like a 6 a.m. and a 8 a.m. or I'm only saying that you have a list of things that you want to run through throughout the day and you do it according to your convenience. But make sure you do them. Because when by the end of the day, when you feel like you have achieved everything that you had on the list, you're going to feel good about it. When you feel good, you show up better the next morning. Um, Structure is what gets you out of depression. Lack of structure is what tends to take you towards it. So, on a general platform, structure is what I would recommend. Um, but it would be helpful to see a doctor or an expert to get specific advice on it. Yes, it is very difficult to follow a routine with a baby. Yes, it is very difficult to follow a routine with a baby. But you need to just follow as much as you can. And you don't need to punish yourself for not being able to follow it. But if you, it's good to have a plan. Like maybe you want to do a couple of things and you will do them when you get it, when you get in between windows, when the baby's asleep and you feel like doing it, or if you don't feel like napping, you can tend to that. So when you have a baby at home, it is different, and it's okay to give yourself the first 2 3 years um, till the time they get relatively more independent to play by themselves, to give yourself the time to space things out, but have a goal, have a list where you feel, okay, these are the things that I do want to do. I will do them when I find the time. Do not think about it when you get the time. Have the list ready. You may or may not be able to do it the same day or even a week or a month, but at least you'll have a goal. So when you find the time, uh, you will do something and you'll feel good about it. What are the symptoms of thyroid? You would need to ask a physician or maybe Google the symptoms of thyroid, because that's a it's to do with a GP. So no more questions. Thank you once again for having me on the platform. I hope the information was informative enough and some of you may benefit from it. So goodbye and take care.